So what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. Today I want to be talking about a specific subject because we're going into spring, and this is that time of year where it's exciting to be back on the water, but it can also be really tough fishing. And the reason behind all that is these fish are getting ready to spawn. There's fish that are going to be migrating in and out of creeks, in and around pinch points, but also there typically can be not necessarily in the areas that you expect, but we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you a visual representation, so stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, guys, so what we're dealing with today is we show up to the lake and it is a beautiful day. We're in t-shirts, blue jeans. It feels really good. It's like 78 degrees. But the water temp is still around that 55 to 57 degree range, depending on what end of the lake you're on, which is one of the main things I want to talk about. Now, depending on how your lake sets up, this is all, depending on the particular lake or river system that you're fishing, but your deeper end is typically going to take longer to warm up. Your shallower end, not necessarily. So that means that a lot of times in your shallower areas, you will find fish, or in your shallower parts of the lake, you will find fish that are typically shallow more than they are deep, because the deep water is not as accessible as it is one end of the lake to the other. Which brings me to my point today. This is what can be extremely tough. You show up, the water temperatures are still cool, and you're fishing your typical areas, your channel swings, your swings that come around the edge of your lake. You're fishing your points, you're fishing your bluff walls, you're fishing all that stuff that a lot of creators like myself talk about, but you're not really getting the bites. You're not really seeing many fish. You're not really seeing many shad. It can leave you scratching your head thinking, what in the world's going on? Well, that's what we're dealing with today. Now, this is where this kind of all comes into play. One of the main things that you want to find is somewhere where it's steep. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a demonstration of exactly what I'm talking about and what you need to be looking for. So if you look to the left of me, we've got all this open lake. Okay, so what you're seeing out in front of me is the entrance to a creek, and you're seeing the main channel go around further to the left. Now, to the right of me, we've got this area right here that's steep right in the middle. We've got a little point that comes out, but at the very, very back on around that little curve back there is like 1 foot of water, and we've got water running in. We've actually got a creek back there. Now, what we're looking for and what you would typically be throwing at, which would probably, this is probably the biggest mistake I see a lot of anglers make this time of year, you're gonna be throwing at that grass. You're gonna be throwing at the points. You're gonna be throwing at these rocks sticking out and stuff. 99% of the time, the fish are not necessarily in those particular areas this time of year. They're staying in those more stable water conditions, which is the deeper water within this creek. Now, all you need to do is ask yourself, where's going to be the deepest water in this creek? Well, it's going to be in the center. It's going to be where you typically place your boat. So what I would suggest doing, how we caught fish today, we're going to stay in the middle of the creek. I'm going to keep my boat pointed to where I can actually throw down the middle of the creek. And I'm going to be bringing my bait along the edge of the drop-offs, right down the middle, and then, just focusing on each side as the bank starts to taper off. And most of the time, these fish are going to be setting up like where you see this little grass point come out right here. These fish will be sitting about 20 foot off of that edge, just hanging out, moving up and down that little ledge and stuff, and bringing your bait down through that area. You're going to be in the strike zone, and 99% of the time, like today when that water starts to muddy up from some rain and stuff, you'll be able to get that bait in, like right in front of that fish. It's hard for them to not bite that bait, depending on what you're throwing. Today we've thrown traps, we've thrown chatterbaits, we've thrown the shad wrap, we've thrown a little bit of everything, and there's not really that one bait that works perfect. We've had, several fish chase and get the jerk bait. Brad's caught some on the rattle trap. You've just gotta change up your presentations, change up your baits a little bit this time of year. A lot of times it doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the bait. It's just kind of dependent on, hey, are these fish mainly feeding on shad, or are they mainly feeding on crawfish? this particular creek, they're feeding on shad, but now we can go to another one that sets up just like this and not get a bite until we change over to some crawl color or brim style baits. So either way, guys, I hope that visual representation helps you, because I know this time of year it can be a struggle. If it did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. It's a great way to support the channel. Comment down below if you have any suggestions, anything you want to add, or you just want to talk fishing. I love hearing from you guys. Hit that subscribe button. I'm always posting stuff at least once a week, full form content, and then short clips 7 days a week. So either way, guys, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.